Andrew, you might deal with the latest funding. If people could post some questions they might have, we try and answer those as well.
What's all very interesting and all that sort of stuff with all the announcements the governments are making, it's very hard at times to actually get the detail out until the legislation's out. So we're getting a lot of questions. Our phones rang hot today on the funding that was announced last night and how it all works and where it does. What we're seeing with some of that funding, it's going to be great. It's going to support some businesses, but it's also got some cracks in it in relation to, if you're a new business and you've just been running for only 8 months, how's that going to continue? Even if you've got to go into the shutdown phase, how can you get that money in to actually support, look after your employees and that side of it? So there's a lot of things that have come out there, the concept there, the the detail of what's going to be, the overall arching details there. But how we can apply that against individual scenarios at times depends on what some of this further detail is. So we've got to look at this, we've got to see and make decisions based on what we've got with that, some of that funding and the $1,500 per fortnight. But sometimes some of these details is, until we get some of that out, it's going to make it hard. If you think you're going to be affected and be eligible, get on, register, get part of the process. And, get onto the ATO website where there's a registration of it, get on there, and then as more of it comes out. The unfortunate part of some of the funding is, what happens if I actually don't have the money to pay the $1,500 for the next 2 months? How am I going to actually afford that? Can I do that? That's where we need to be talking to the banks, or where we'd like to see a bit more detail come out over the next couple of days from the government. If I don't pay them, but my employees are happy, able to basically, we might give them $200 a week because that's all I can afford. Can I still get my $1,500 in May when that's going to come out and then back pay those employees? There's some things like that we're trying to look into and find out to help people to go down it. Otherwise, maybe we've got to go to the bank. If we've been working with the bank, got an overdraft, can we say to the employees, look, this is my $1,500 a fortnight that I want to, on staff that I've stood down. Where do I go and how do I do that? Can they fund me the $20,000 that I need? And as the money comes in, it'll go straight in to pay that $20,000 back to the bank. So from an actual, the employer retention of trying to keep the staff and at least keep them engaged with them, that's really where a lot of that funding came last night. There are there's some things there that still come out from the first 1 or 2 announcements in relation to the employee withholding and that side of it. On the $1,500 that was announced last night, there's still going to need to be some withholding amounts to go to the employee and be held from those wages. Those withholding amounts also contribute to the amounts that you're actually going to be getting back as an amount back from the government as part of the stimulus package that they 1 and 2 up, which has gone up to $50,000 for the first until June, and then another 50 after June to December in that period. So some of this stimulus money that they've done last night for the retention employees is actually going to assist to get some of the stimulus money from before. But all I can sort of suggest there with a lot of it is very much talk with your accountant and your advisor to help you work through those scenarios, and probably don't assume you can, don't assume that you can't. You really need to make sure that you're looking at the fine detail right in that side of it.
Andrew, would you suggest that people need to really put some urgency around getting their BAS done because the first payments are due later in April?
Basically, if you lodge your BAS returns they're not due to about the 28th of March. I don't think the systems and processes are going to be placed. What they're saying out of the tax office is that they're probably not going to start processing some of those payments until after the 28th. And that money is actually going to go against the integrated client account. And then if there's money there on credit because you haven't paid or your BAS or something like that, that will then be refunded to you. Whereas the stimulus package last night from the employer retention type side, that money, I understand, the reading I've done today, is going to actually, once the ATO starts processing that money is then going to be refunded back to the employer. But where we're seeing some things from our government, our professional bodies, and that is what happens if you've actually got a debt with the ATO, so that you've got a payment arrangement and extension of time. Are you going to see that $1,500 get paid back to you, or is that going to be applied against your debt that you might have been able to defer? So there's some unknowns about how that's going to come through, and what the tax office's approach is going to be with the regards to that we're still trying to find some detail on. And we've probably got a session the next couple of days with a group that's very much tied in with the tax advisor, that's very much tied in with the government there, that may have some inside running for us to find out that sort of thing with it. Question there from Brendan is, when will those details come out, you think? I'm hoping over the next week we'll see a lot more, especially from some of our professional bodies, to be able to provide us a bit more of the details. So as soon as we can get some of that out, I'm wanting to, you know, we're going to try and distribute that. Everyone that's on here, we can try and distribute that out to everyone as more things are coming along.
I'm going to make a comment. I've had a number of conversations with bankers about how willing they are to support businesses through this period. If you haven't spoken to your banker yet, please do so. They are very accepting of how they can help you. Each business has, depending on your financial ability, access to additional funds through the banking system, of which the government's going to provide 50% security around. So if you feel that you're going to have trouble getting through to retaining your staff until those payments by the end of May, talk to your bankers, because they want to play the game with you and help you.
Also, Sandy is a financial counsellor that's just online. She sent a message through, I think, there to everyone. She'll be able to see that there is also the Small Business Financial Counselling Support Line, who can assist from a free from that perspective in relation to, there's a number there of 1800 413 828 to be able to deal with someone feels they can't afford or can't get that advice. By all means, use those counselling services, financial counselling services that can assist people from a financial perspective of where they need to go. But we often find that we've got to make sure people are getting their strategy right to flow through to the financial, but probably people are also feeling at the moment, I can't afford to pay any advice, my business is just shut down, and these are the ideal services that can go down that route and that side of it. So Sandy, there's also probably a cheat sheet. Yes, we're in the process of developing something there that we'll be able to provide to you and be able to probably provide to some of your clients that you will be assisting through that process. And I'll come back to you on the, referral clients. I'll have a discussion to you about all that if we can help out where we can. Links online every day. I'll see what I can find. I'm just basically following as much as I can in the news and a few professional bodies that we've got with that coming out. There is the health one. There's also another one. So I'll put some links out that we've been following to Brendan, that way for people to follow, to be able to see where and what that's coming up and what's getting shot out as it comes.
Yeah, we'll send you out a copy of this presentation, and when we do, we'll also attach links to the tax office as well as some of the announcements that have come out. So we'll send you a bit of a package so that you've got the stuff that's coming direct from the government or the tax office in relation.
The government's basically, as they're announcing those things, there's a fact sheet which provides some examples through that, and we'll distribute what fact sheets and that we've got at the moment. But it's really coming up to where else can we find some more detail that's not just in the fact sheet, but really is the questionable side of things as you start applying it to businesses. How does that affect it? And that not, I've had through from farmers asking me, am I eligible for it? And in some of the stimulus package things that they're able to, ascertain and do, yes, the farmers are going to be, but are they going to actually be eligible for the latest funding of the 1,500? My answer is really that's not what that's there for. It's for these businesses that have to be able to keep staff that are affected with their turnovers from, I've got a 30% reduction or I've had to close, for that money to be able to keep staff on board. And probably what's the other thing I wanted to add with it too, and this is where it gets to, is what happens if I've got to put staff off? Am I actually just laying them down, or I'm actually retrenching them and not wanting them anymore? And those things are very complicated process, and you're able to basically stand people down now without pay, but you've got to actually look at the awards and whether you're allowed to do that through your awards, so that you're not actually retrenching them, but they're standing down. And there's a big difference, because if you go and retrench someone, and depending on the size of your company, you may have to be paying redundancies, and you may also have to be then getting lumped with big lump sums to pay their annual leave out and everything at once. Whereas if you can sit down with your staff and say, right, I'll pay your annual leave, you've got 4 weeks annual leave, and then you're going to be leave without pay. Now the $1,500 potentially comes into them to be paid that, but basically they're virtually being stood down. You're then not making any lump sum payments or any amounts of money that you've got to go and pay them 4 weeks notice and all those sorts of things with it. So all I could suggest there's no one right rule for anyone for that. It's all about what works for your business and really being fully aware of what works, what a financial effect that's going to have on it, and whether you need to go down that route. And even to the question, if I stand someone down and then I want to make them redundant in 6 weeks' time because the business doesn't pick up, how does that work, and how does that get affected?
Without a doubt, this is the most emotional part of the decisions that people have got to face. It's very difficult for people to put people off. But one of the things I've found very empowering for business owners that worked on, individually review every staff member and see, do they actually fit with the business and where we want to go to in the future? And unfortunately, for some employees, they're not part of the solution in the long term. And so looking at who you need to exit first is a really critical thing, rather than losing your good employees that are part of your future, because they are living in a world of uncertainty. So being really clear about who's valuable to your business is an absolute piece of gold in making sure that when you build your strategy and who you talk to, that you've got the right approach for the right staff member.
And I probably think another big, and the two big major costs for a lot of businesses is rent and wages. And the other big announcement to see is really what's happening in relation to this rental assistance, or well, I know they're changing, not being able to be kicked out in 6 months and all that, but I think that's going to be very critical in seeing what can happen on that way. Because, if you've got to pay 6 months worth of rent, where do you stand? What's your exposure? How much of it? With the new loans that they've got $250,000 loans that the banks are 50% of it's going to be guaranteed by the government. I'm encouraging people, utilise it if it's there, utilise it if you can use it. What I'm conscious of is people capitalising interest. So depending on your circumstances, if you're fully shut down, you might have many more options bar, capitalise that interest. If you're still trading and you can trade through, just because you think you want to capitalise the interest, it's just basically, it's building a bigger hole for you at the end of the day. So if you can still scrape through and cover off your interest, put your loan repayments on hold, but still pay your interest. And it's sitting down and looking at what your cash flow can do and talking to your bank and say to the bank, right, at the moment, I'm going to try and meet the interest payments. In 6 weeks' time, things don't work out that way, I might have to put that interest payments on hold. And literally, we're talking with a client today, and the banks have, the amount of phone calls they've made in the last 2 weeks, they reckon there's the amount of phone calls they've actually made in the last 12 months in some instances, because they are just run hot with everyone asking where this is all at. So in all this, everything is, people are, we all need things yesterday and we need to answer, but there's going to be a lot of stretch on resources, anywhere from the ATO through to the banks to assisting with these. Very, very hard for people to get some answers and get some assistance at times. So the sooner you can probably jump in and get some of this happening, or at least be in the pipeline with it, the more I recommend that you jump in and do it. Even if it's just touching base with your manager and saying, this is what I'm thinking, I'll come back to you in a week's time. What are your thoughts on it? So that you know that you're working in the right direction.
Guys, we've been going for 45 minutes now. Can we get the last questions up? So we're happy to keep on and keep answering questions for you. If you need to go, please do.
Yep, there's one there now. Any thoughts on how the ATO will ask to see the 30% downturn to be eligible for JobKeeper claim? Will it be averaged or over a full financial year, or based on the previous quarter? The commentary that's come out of there is they'll basically say, was your March month last year 30% down? I think what's going to come about it is basically sometimes that may not actually be the case. You might have an initial jump. Everyone might have jumped in and bought your product. Therefore, you're not 30% down for this month, but next month you're going to be 30% down. I'd say next month you're definitely going to be eligible, but is the government going to then backdate you and say you're eligible from the 1st of March? That is the detail, and that's the hard part. I think a little bit of common sense should come into it. It doesn't mean it is. It very much, we're getting the messages out from our professional bodies through the government, is they're not wanting accountants to be out there promoting schemes, to be making things set up so that you can get all this funding if you're not really eligible to do it. So I think it's really trying to keep that ethical stance, try and do the right things, show that, yes, we might have said that our March last year was up, but if we actually showed them for the 3 months, our average turnover for that period is normally X, Y, Z, we're at this level this month, and here's our predictions. I'm sure they're going to sit down and contemplate that. They're wanting to basically keep employers paying employees, whether they're still working. They don't want the employees in Centrelink. And this is where it's all coming from, is they don't want to put them on the Job Starter program. They want them to be on the JobKeeper program. So the main benefit of having it through the employer is that they probably are dealing with less people by dealing through the ATO with the employer than what they are with the employees dealing direct with Centrelink. So I think if businesses are affected and they see that side of it coming through, they're going to be encouraging for that to come, to continue to make sure people are eligible from that side of it.
Brenda's got a question there about, besides the above, SMEs, what else can we take advantage of? I think one of the things about looking at different scenarios is sometimes we forget to look at where we could potentially generate new income streams. Or how we can change our product or service that actually can find a new direction for our business. So yes, we can go through every item in your P&L and try and look at reducing the costs. Certainly landlords, loan repayments, equipment finance repayments, all of those can be deferred. Your staff can be, you can approach them and stand them down and talk to them about how they'd like to get paid and whether you can afford that. There's the loans. Yes, they're all different things you do. You can actually review your systems and processes and remove some of the hidden inefficiencies in your business where it might reduce your electricity costs. Going to your service providers like Essential Energy, Telstra, all of those guys, they're all willing to listen. They all want to get paid. They're willing to make concessions about what you can do. I think sometimes we've got to look beyond those cost-saving messages and saying, can we connect with that? Where do we actually add value to them? And can we re-engage them? Because there's a lot of customer loyalty out there. People want to support local businesses. And Buy for the Bush through the drought has been an absolute raging success. And I think if you create a community with your customers, it's amazing what you'll be able to achieve.
The other stimulus stuff that's out there is also just in relation to apprentices and trainees, where they're getting paid, subsidised for businesses that are continuing 50% of their 50% up to about 20,000 over a 9-month period. Even if you might shut down for 2 months, it might be a period there where that still be eligible when you're up and running again to be able to obtain that. One of the first, I think, silly announcements the government was the $150,000 capital spend. If you go and spend $100,000 on a capital item, that's immediately tax deduction, and then there's some accelerated depreciation for that. The problem is, a lot of the businesses that this is greatly affecting and need the stimulus is not wanting to spend the money. But I know the government was trying to hope people would go and spend some money to create activity. But I think really the back end of this stimulus package we're seeing at the moment is about jobs and money for people and just keeping people rolling along. I think at the back end of it, when we're starting to come out of it, we're going to see a different stimulus package where I think we're going to see that push for expenditure and government infrastructure builds further and bring forward of projects to really try and keep the economy with actual projects where now people can get out and start, living and operating again normally with that side of it. Is there a financial assistance for sole traders? Yes, there is. This $1,500 is there now for the sole traders. There's some other information which I'll distribute, another briefing that came out this afternoon for sole traders and what they're eligible for, but definitely eligible for that $1,500 should they have that turnover criteria being met in that side of it. But where I'm also struggling is what's the difference to a sole trader to a partnership? You're in a partnership, you're not actually paying wages to yourself, you're just taking out drawings, which is no different to a sole trader. How does a partnership get, from my perspective, they should have the same opportunity to that $1,500 if their business is totally being cut to be able to continue that for themselves as individuals, which is where the sole trader money is getting put in that side. So there's a few things there that are gradually coming out. And I know there's been a big call out about the sole traders. That there was some information put out there today from that side of it. If anyone's got anything else, please ask. But yes, we'll send out the slides, and we'll put together the packages of some of this information, or especially this stimulus information, so that people have got some reference or some reading to do. All we can encourage people to do is over time, sit down, look at those stimulus, what you can do and how they can affect your business. But really, that's got to be taken in, those things are taken in line with what you're going to do with your business, how you're going to manage it, what are your strategies. Yes, we've got some immediate knee-jerk reactions we've got to do, but as soon as you can deal with those matters, where are we going, and then what are we going to do through this period where we talked about the lull period, and then can we thrive in that lull period, or is it just managing to get to a break-even level or a small loss level that we've got enough cash resources to fund through? If we don't, well, what other harder decisions do we need to do? And then coming back out of that, how am I going to prosper? Are people's habits going to change? Are we going to do life differently now when we come back out the other side? And we don't know the answers to that. No one does. It depends on how long this is for. And, are we going to go through a period where we can start trading again, and then we're going to come back and the government, we've had another outbreak and the government's going to shut down? They're the unknowns, and they're the things we've got to continue managing with.
Okay, so as part of, just to wrap up today, thank you everybody for attending. I hope you found this valuable. We are providing every one of you a free consultation. So you either ring Andrew and I. The numbers are on the presentation that you sent out. Please use it. It is a genuine free offer to help you, because we've got lots of clients who we've spoken to. If you haven't had anybody to talk to, you're more than welcome to do that. If you can't get us on our mobiles, ring the office and talk to Fiona, or send us an email at solutions@businessdna.digital. Anyway, thank you very much. Hope this has been helpful, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks all.